Hey, good morning folks. Today I'm doing a video about the 5 steps you need to take so you can have a fail-proof garden. Fertility, that's the first most important thing in my opinion, that you need to have a successful garden. So all fertility is it's some type of organic matter that is made available through biological processes to the plants. So all life is made up of the same basic components, and so you can take any type of organic matter, break it down, and feed it to your plants. And so what I do is I just take whatever organic matter I can get my hands on, I dig a hole, put it in the hole, and then I cover it over and I plant on top of that. And so as soon as I cover it over, these biological processes begin happening that are breaking down this material so that's available for the plants. If you don't have that fertility, your plants are going to be really anemic and weak, and it's not going to bear any fruit. All right, second thing you need is water. Plants have to have water, and some plants need more water and some plants need less. But at the end of the day, all plants are going to need water. And so I've got my rain gauge here, and we get about 50 inches a year here in North Florida. And so personally, in my climate, I don't have to worry about water all that much. Sometimes in the spring, I will irrigate from a well, but you got to keep your plants watered. Watch the plant, observe the plant. If it looks wilty in the heat of the day, probably needs a little bit more water. And sometimes my plants get like that, and I let them suffer, but a lot of times they get through it, and we'll get rain, and they just burst forth. All right, you guys see that big thing right there? That's real important for your plants. Sunshine. This may be terrible for my phone camera, but we'll see. But anyway, what's going on here with me is as soon as the sun gets over this tree, that's about 1 hour there, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. So what's that, 5 hours? Whew, I can't look at the sun anymore. Yeah, so I get about 5 hours in the summer of sunshine. And the rest of the day, it's getting filtered through the trees. And that's fine. Clearly, my plants are getting enough. And if you don't know if your plants are getting enough sunshine, you can use my little trick where you hold your hand out, and the width of your hand is about an hour. So in the screen, it'd be like 1 hour, 2 hours, and like a half an hour. So that distance there, when I hold my arm out, would be about 2.5 hours. All right, folks, in this shot, see if you can spot any pollinators. Pollinators are so critical to, you can see a few bees buzzing around, but pollinators are so critical to producing food, because you have things like this watermelon, my Seminole pumpkins, there's a few other things that require pollination for them to crossbreed. And so if I don't have pollinators coming to my yard, I may grow these wonderful watermelon vines, but end up with no watermelons, and that'd be awful. It'd be a total waste of time. So what I do is I let things like this spiderwort grow in my garden, because they're bringing in pollinators. And then if we go over here, oh man, what a mess of weeds, right? Well, look, this clover, this is a Mexican clover, not a true clover. But the bees are all over these little tiny flowers, and most people wouldn't have even noticed that this weed had flowers on it because they're so small. But as we can see, this honeybee is thoroughly enjoying it, and so all these flowers here on all these little weeds are actually bringing in a lot of pollinators. There's another, oh, here's a green bee. That's pretty cool. So pollination is key, and so if you don't have weeds popping up on their own that have flowers, then maybe you should intentionally plant some flowers just to bring in the pollinators. Now, another thing that you can plant that may not necessarily have flowers is a host plant for butterflies and moths. And so here we've actually got 2 types of caterpillars. The little tiny orange one there in the background, that's a Gulf fritillary, and then this one is a zebra longwing. And this passion vine just happened to pop up in amongst the chaos here, and I noticed it, and I let it go, and I gave it these poles to climb on, And sure enough, the butterflies have come in and they're laying their eggs and they're reproducing on this vine. And so it's attracting these butterflies, which are also coming in and pollinating the flowers. But personally, I think the hold on, let me get that in focus. I think the butterflies are just beautiful. So whether or not they pollinated anything, I'd still, oh, here we go. Perfect timing. So there's the zebra longwing fluttering right around the vine, the passion vine. And so she'll lay some eggs on the vine and then move on. But this vine actually isn't mature yet and will produce flowers that will bring in more pollinators. So it's kind of a double-edged sword where both edges are good. Look at that, freshly hatched caterpillars. Those are Gulf Fertilitors, I think. But I mean, they hatched like yesterday, I think. And they will grow very rapidly. That's amazing. The fifth and last thing you need to do in your garden to make it abundant is you need to have diversity. I'm a huge believer in this. And a lot of people just want to grow one thing, and you see these farm fields where it's just corn or just soybeans or just peanuts or cotton, whatever it is. And they look great, but in reality, that's a dead system. They don't have insects, they don't have life, abundant life there. It's really just a propped up system that's not sustainable. I have so many different things. I mean, I could probably count off 20 or 30 different species of plant growing in my garden. The principle here is don't grow the same thing in a whole big area. You can grow it, you know, I have like little patches of corn here and there, but they're surrounded by other things, tomatoes, beans, whatever. And the diversity is what brings together a whole ecosystem. And people who have experimented a lot like this, they say that about 7 different species mixed together is really kind of the minimum amount of diversity you want. In reality, you want a much larger diversity. My personal kind of rule of thumb is I base everything off of a 3 sisters method, which is basically growing corn, beans, and a squash or melon together. And I just kind of expand out of there. And so in my garden, there's just stuff scattered all in between, but you're generally not going to see a bunch of things right next to each other. Really, we don't completely understand what's going on in the soil. And so when we get a diversity, there's just so many millions of different things going on. Our brains can't really fully get wrapped around it. But I know from my own experiences is that when I have a diversity of plants, it does really well. And then also it comes down to wisdom. If you plant one type of plant and it doesn't do well, or you make some kind of mistake, boom, the whole crop is gone. You're screwed. So if you plant a diversity, you're putting all your eggs in different baskets. So if one basket gets killed, you know, you have a pest issue or something, you have other plants that you're growing that you can rely on. And so that makes gardening a lot more fun if you plant a bunch of different stuff. That way, if you do have a few failures, you're much more likely to have a few successes as well. And that'll take the sting out of those failures way faster, especially if you're an optimist and you focus on the positive stuff going on. And that's what I do, and that's how I enjoy and have a very productive garden. So folks, I hope you implement the advice I've given today and have a really successful garden this year. One of the other things I didn't really mention is a time of year, but here's the biggest piece of advice I can give. Keep planting. Be persistent in putting seeds in the ground. The more seeds you plant, the more successful you will be. That's just the fact. And so if I plant 1 seed and it fails, that's very discouraging. But if I plant 100 seeds and only 10% survive, 10 plants survived. That's great. And so once seeds are not equal to each other whatsoever, I planted 10 seeds and only 1 survived. That 1 seed, for some reason, had some kind of genetics that was better suited for the spot that I put that seed. It's a mystery. I don't get it. And so when you plant more seeds, you're going to have a lot more success. So don't be afraid to way overseed, because you cannot go back in time and plant stuff after stuff has failed. So plant seeds. All right, folks, I hope this video has been helpful to you. I hope you implement everything I went over here. If you have questions, I can answer stuff in more detail and more directly to the questions you have. But leave me a comment, hit that like button if you made it this far, and hope to see you guys on the next video.